Hello and welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AKAAWOL, and this is a post over on Reddit. And yes, I just finished doing a video about sorting out somebody's pattern and stuff, and I'm back at doing it again. So this was the post. Anybody know what pattern this is? It's such an incomplete bracelet. Like, oh my god. But I felt like, you know what, this is a cool challenge. So I worked out, based on these diamonds that don't quite connect to each other, that this is a 10-string bracelet. Well, it'll be 20 coming down, right? So I will go over to my webpage, right, akaawol.com, click on graph paper. Why does it do that? I keep getting these error messages. There it goes, graph paper. And go down to 10-string bracelet. So I just downloaded this PDF and opened it over here in GIMP. And then I trimmed out, because in the picture they started it off with the thing. So I trimmed out the little bit of the V here to have it kind of ready for you guys. All right, so I'm gonna copy this and paste it over here so we can look and see kind of what's going on. This is like I said, there's not a lot to go on. So and we're gonna kind of, I don't know how much screen we need, but if we trim out some of the extra, image crop to selection, it'll help the whole process a little bit. So the first thing I notice, it looks like there is a white row at the top before the gray in the other. And again, I think we're just going to take the colors straight from here. Did I anchor the layers? Yes. So yeah, it'll be hard to kind of repaint it something else. It looks a little bit off-white, so maybe it won't be so terrible if we had to try to paint it something else. So there's that. Then the next thing we see is this gray, and it goes out to the edge and bounces back. And then it doesn't, we can see here, it doesn't actually connect in the center. So this is how I was able to figure out like how many strings there was in this, was through that, like just counting out how many would fit. So that's like the first thing that we needed in making this, is to know the number of strings involved. So there we go. And because there's not much of the pattern, I'm gonna have to like guess and improvise to what happens next kind of thing. Because yeah, this really does not answer a lot of the questions of like what is supposed to be going on. So this should be entertaining. Okay, so that's this line coming down here, and it looks like we've got this gray. It's a little bit sloppy knot work here, but it looks like this gray was coming down like this. And then this red only does 3 knots. It looks like the white came out above it. So there's only 3 of those. And then this yellow here. And then this white came this way. So already out the gate, we got a lot of things going on, and we have a lot of strings to figure out where they are in order to place them properly to do this. So let's work out the ones that we can see that are obvious. Like obviously this row goes this way, and it becomes the string that can come down here. I'm not sure how far along we will do this pattern. It seems to me like for me, like these kind of patterns, I like to have like a lot of symmetry. I like to start from the center, and the fact that we don't have a lot of the pattern to work from really kind of makes that difficult. We can't see what's supposed to be happening and to determine like what part of the pattern we want to be the center. So there might be a follow-up video to this is what I'm kind of getting at. There's, you know, a remake where we actually figure out what the length is of the strings in a 10-string bracelet, find our center, and then work from there. All right, so now we can, so to make these gray diamonds, you actually had to have 2 strings coming in, one from either side, and that's easy peasy. And then again, just working out the underlying strings based on what we can see, what we know to be there, and then there's possibly going to be some trying to discern what the other colors are based on what is happening a little further down. Like that's a possibility as well. Like we may not actually get all the answers in this first little segment, but that's okay. We can work this out. I have faith in myself. Hopefully you guys have faith in me as well. I mean, I guess that's probably why you're here. And yeah. All right, so the next is this red. So I'm kind of wondering, this person has a bracelet that is unfinished and they don't have a pattern, and it kind of boggles my mind. Like, did they lose the pattern partway through it? Was it something they inherited from somebody else? Like, I have so many questions, but I guess what I really want to do is to help answer what they can do with what is already made. Mind you, the knots are really kind of sloppy. You know, in those kind of cases, like this complicated of a pattern is not something I recommend for somebody who hasn't figured out how to keep tension yet. So yeah, it just is what it is. All right, I am going to assume that the yellow comes from both sides. It wouldn't necessarily have to, but kind of judging the overall look of it, it would seem that way. So because it kind of looks like it's not meant to be, whoops, it doesn't look like it's meant to be a super complicated thing. So we're gonna run on that idea that the yellow comes out to both sides. All right, and we're only left with this one here. We know that this extra white had to come from somewhere, so that's going to answer the question of this one. And seeing as how both of these sides up here are the same, I'm going to guess that's probably what's going to happen. We'll find out in a minute when we take a look at what's over here. But I think this string on the outside, I think that's going to be white as well. All right, so there's our first segment. Gosh, this is really hard. It does look like they brought a white into this corner. Yeah, so like they just have one single white knot, and then somehow the red takes over? What is that about? Okay, so yeah, it is white. Kind of guessed that one. Did not guess that it was going to do this, and I don't know which way that necessarily goes just yet. Let's put it in on the other side as well. But that goes to there, and then our red comes out, and whoops, it goes all the way but doesn't touch. They go all the way down to this middle area, right? They're not, it's not overlapping. So, okay, fair enough. That's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a thing. Okay. So now we have it going to there. It's going to come back, I assume, to be the same as where it started from. Because again, it's kind of hard. These bits are covering, but it looks that way, right? And then it looks like this whole top half reverses. So next is the yellow. And the yellow comes this way. And comes all the way down. And all the way back out to here. Again, this gets a little bit tricky because we're obviously going to have to match what was happening before. So let's get this white one in. Like that, and we know that there's a white at the top of each of these. So now there's one, whoops, missed one up here. And then this is, we can see how that gets through. So it's white, yellow, red. So out here, there's our white, yellow, and red. So this way we can kind of see that we're matching the colors to be the reverse of what was happening up above, right? So that's a thing. And these strings here, nice big straight rows, obviously that's the direction those knots are going. We can bring the yellow through. So we only kind of know what's going on with a very small portion of this whole pattern. I don't know what that's going to mean when we get past this, flipping this thing over. Because, whoops. Right, am I right there? Right. When I'm zoomed out, it makes it harder to hit the little area. But there's that. Okay. So. Right. White, white. White, yellow, red. Okay. So there we go. We got another area done. And with the yellow, we can see that this is going to come through do this. So that makes that kind of interesting. That's neat. Let's do this on both sides. And if we could just work out the bits that are like really obvious that you can see what's going on, this won't be all that hard. So there's a red that goes inside of that. That's this red coming through and going this way. And one of the things we can't see is the fact that this gray has no other way to get around from one side to the other than to go exactly through there. So that's, again, just using a little deductive reasoning. So that goes there. Let's see, we've got a white coming through here and a white coming through there. We have several whites, in fact. Look at that. Okay. That might explain all this out here. So now, somehow, this gray comes out like that, and then out here and back. So where did it come from? It comes from red, orange, gray. So the gray should be here? No. Yellow, red, gray, yellow, red, gray. Yeah, it was here. So it somehow has to find its way like that. So we have a white here that can change its direction. We have a white here that can come and cross over top of it. We have a white here that can be underneath it so while it changes its direction. And then that white will have to come back this way. We have two whites here. That was a yellow. Whoops. I don't know why that got sloppy, but it did. So then this is a white coming this way. And this is a white coming that way. So look at that. We figured out exactly how that gray gets to where it needs to be. So that's interesting, right? So that's probably like the trickier part of this pattern, is the fact that they sort of redirected the gray to kind of make it a little mysterious. You know, how does it get there? What does it do? So that was clever. Oops. And then this white comes through here. So if we did this right, the colors up here should match the colors here. So it's gray, red, yellow, gray, red, yellow, white, 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 gray, red, yellow, gray, red, yellow. So it is the same. So now you can see this is going to do the repeat of what this did up here. So this gray that comes from right in this goes all the way out to the outside. And then comes back in to make the diamonds like this. And then you can see this gray here is what comes for the other side to make this bit. So that's cool. And I like to fill in the stuff that I can as I go along. Kind of makes it a little bit easier. You kind of, while it's fresh in your mind, you can see what's happening. So this is a fairly wide bracelet. This is wider than I typically work with. Not terribly difficult or crazy or anything, but it's different. Okay, so the next color is this red, which is what comes through next here, and it just goes that far. But the color underneath continues because that's what we need to do these diamonds up here. So this is a bunch of work for just a video for somebody who seems to have lost their pattern, but it's good exercise. It's doing this kind of thing helps keep me sharp with my bracelet making skills, and sometimes in some of these patterns I might see something that I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I'd like to use that in a different way in my own pattern. So yeah. All right. The next is the yellow dot that comes through here. Like that. And the one thing that kind of, like this dot here, those two yellow strings cross over each other, so it couldn't be anything other than the yellow. The rest of that has the white to come over top of it, so the string can kind of go straight through, and then these whites come along and cover up the rest of those strings. So now we're coming up to the part of this pattern that could be a little bit more confusing, because we don't have any references as to what the original did. It's hard to say what's supposed to go over here. So I'm gonna say maybe this thing here, maybe it mirrors itself, right? So Like, I wonder if they, so you can't see at the top up here like what the gray was going to do, but if it does mirror itself, then these grays right here will come all the way down like that, right? So then we end up with a diamond shape over on this side, and then we end up with the red doing this again, the yellow here, and then the white coming this way. All right, so that way we end up with the same pattern as we did basically at the start. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more of this we need to do because of the nature of how it would obviously repeat itself. I don't want to cop out and bail on it too soon, but I kind of feel like at this point we can see, whoops, we can see what comes next. And again, on a pattern like this, I would probably try to figure out like what area is the major focal point, and then make that the center of the bracelet. But again, I didn't have much of a pattern to work with. I didn't have anything to discern where that focal point would be. It could either be right in the middle of this part here, right? And so that's your center, or it's the center of one of these diamonds. You put this in the middle of the bracelet, so that way it ends up being nice and symmetrical and works itself out. So either way, I think is correct. And it's entirely up to you guys to decide how would you do it. Like, my graph paper is over on AKAAWOL.com, where you can grab up a bit of this if you want to try to rework the pattern. If you have an existing bracelet, you can count the number of knots down one straight row and then do that to the pattern. Find out exactly what your length is. Then you can do things like figure out where the center is. You can work out all kinds of stuff. You could work out like where the quarter area is or whatever. It'll make it easier for when you're trying to design this, or set it up for yourself. And whoops, zoomed in a bit much. This one's red, this one's yellow, white, gray, red, yellow, and white. So there we have it. There's our pattern. Like I said, it's just gonna, at this point, keep repeating itself. So I think this is enough to get the person going on their way. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. You learned something. You learned how to sort out a pattern from what very little we were given. Thank you to my Patreon supporters who made all this possible. I couldn't have done it without you guys. So I thank you. Be sure to give a like and maybe leave me a comment. Tell me what you think of this one. And yeah, I will look forward to making some more videos here for you guys. All right. So yeah, don't get your strings in a bunch.